Man, I think 3 days off was such a big thing for the Nuggets. Every other series has only been a day in between or two max. There hasn't been a series that had 3 days in between for rest, especially not in the second round that I've seen. So I think that kind of did the Nuggets a little favor. They were really able to regroup. They said in the broadcast that Coach Malone gave the Nuggets a day off after that game. They didn't even do anything physical. And then they had 2 more days to be able to kind of figure things out and gather themselves. They were able to sit on the film. And I'm not sure how it would have rolled over to the next game if they only had a day break, having to travel. The Timberwolves, they don't have that same time. They're going back to Denver. They only have a day in between and they're traveling. So I think they should really be thankful for the schedule the NBA gave them because 3 days for Murray and his injury and things like that, I think they really got a big favor from those 3 days break. But yeah, man, I think just the half court offense for the Timberwolves, they're gonna have to figure that out. They're gonna have to figure out how to get everybody else to play off of Anthony Edwards. They're gonna have to figure out how to create advantages off of that because it stalls Anthony Edwards. He's the only thing that's consistently going for that offense, especially when they trap him out near the half court line. He's kind of just sitting there waiting. He's not making them have to try to contain him or try to break free from that. And I think that's where you're going to have to put a more offensively gifted player in that that free throw area where he's throwing that pocket pass because Gobert's not going to get it done for you. He's not going to provide anything for you being that secondary playmaker or that reader who catches that pocket pass on the short roll. I think you're better off putting Karl-Anthony Towns or Nas Reed in that position. There was one point where they had all three of them out there. They had Cat, they had Nas Reed, and Rudy Gobert, and I think that's actually when they went on that short run, that 11-2 run. But I think for them to have success, they're gonna have to consider, sitting Gobert a little bit more and using him in there for situations to just bang on Jokic and be that rim protector because their offense is really suffering. Other guys are already airballing and not hitting threes enough as it is. So I think your best option is if they're going to double, make them have to close out to a guy and contain the drive instead of them being able to play 5-on-4. Like I said earlier, Gobert is the guy that you want to get the ball. And even when he grabs it in the paint, he's not even finishing over the smaller guards. And if you foul him, that's a plus for you anyways, because he's at best he's going to go 1 for 2. He's not knocking down both free throws. And I just think he's kind of hindering the Timberwolves on the offensive end. While I also think they can play, like if the Nuggets are going to get shots like they are now, there's really no point in having Gobert out there because you're not stopping them anyway. So you're going to have to compete with them offensively. So I think that's something they really need to think of because if you can get Jokic to have to step out and guys when they rotate to have to close out and contain that drive, I think you're going to give yourself a better chance. You're going to free up more guys. You're going to give more open space for them to shoot. And then that opens up cutting lanes and things like that. But you can't do that with Gobert in the paint there. So offensively, they're going to have to find a fix for that because like I said, the Nuggets have made this a half court game. The whole pressing and rattling them, that's out the window. They're not going to allow you to do that anymore. And like I said, shout out to Aaron Gordon. Being a big point guard, he's handling that pressure well. And instead of Alexander Walker, Jaden McDaniels, or Ant being the ones pressing, they're forcing Cat and Gobert to pick up. They're like, if you want to press, you're going to have to use your bigs to do that. And we see that they're just not able to do it. Nas Reed was out there. He fouled Jokic like in the
I know
other
exactly
half
which one.
court.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not doing anything. Why are you fouling that early? And then when Jokic actually gets him on the block down there, Nas can't do anything with him. He's bully balling him. He's hitting his turnaround fade. He's hitting his floaters. He had a crazy pass on that right block area where he was about to back
Yeah.
shoulder
Yeah.
fade to the baseline and both guys jump and he throws it around down to Aaron Gordon for the dunk. So, I mean, if they're gonna torch you anyways, you got to take Gobert out of there. It's tough because you paid all that capital and resource for him, and the narrative around Gobert is that he can't be on the court in the playoffs, but you're just gonna have to adjust to the environment and the way the game is going, you're not going to be able to just stick with Gobert because he's your main guy. You got to make those adjustments, and it's interesting to see how that dynamic with Coach Finch and the assistant acting head coach, how they're going to make those decisions because you're going to have to really be able to make those adjustments because what you have been doing, the recipe is not working anymore. The Nuggets have figured it out. So offensively, it's going to be a mystery for them to figure it out. And they got a day to do that before going back to Denver, where I think they've actually settled in. Like Murray didn't have a big game, and they looked just as good as they would if he was getting going, and him and Jokic were handling the offense. Like they're getting production from multiple guys, so the Timberwolves got to figure out a way to combat that.
Yeah, the Timberwolves, their offense, it really gets stagnant, and I don't think that they really have any actions to get Anthony Edwards easier looks, if that makes sense. It's really dependent on Anthony Edwards creating for himself, right? And yeah, they have a few like ball screens, but other than that, Anthony Edwards is really taking his man off the dribble, creating his own shot and things like that. And he is able to do it just because he is that good. He had a great game tonight. But for the offense as a whole, over time, I think it looked like he was just tired, right? Over time. And I'm not saying that he's out of shape or anything. He's in tip-top shape, but just
Yeah.
how much that they were leaning on him offensively just for him to create the offense for everybody every single time down the floor. It just took a toll. And I think that they have to figure out better ways to get him easier baskets, right? Get into different actions. But the thing is, this is how they play all season. So I really don't know how many actions they have to rely on because at this point, you are who you are, right? Of course, you can make
Yeah.
adjustments and things like that, but those adjustments have to be built in over the course of a season because if you try
Mhm.
and do something off the cuff now that you haven't really prepared for over the your time in the regular season and then early on in the postseason, it gets hard to make
Yeah.
drastic adjustments. So
It's
they'll
not
have to
just
figure
him.
that out.
The other
Yeah.
guys got to know how to play off of it too. And without reps, then kind of just trying stuff at this point. So I agree with you
Yeah.
there.
But they still have to figure out how to make it easier on Anthony Edwards, which would make it easier on everyone else because if you get into some sort of action, it could help out. But right now they're just really reliant on their defense and their defense creating opportunities on the offensive end and then Anthony Edwards creating in the half court by himself, really. That's really what it is. Also, to your point about the 3 days in between game 2 and game 3, that was really big. I mean, the adjustments the Denver Nuggets made, like you mentioned, instead of relying on Murray or another point guard to bring the ball up every single time, they now use Gordon as like you gave him the title like a big point guard. And even with that, Jaden McDaniels was still trying to press up on Aaron Gordon, but Aaron Gordon with
So
the
strong.
bigger, stronger body, yeah, he's able to kind of take the bumps and get the ball up the court, even though his handle might not be better than someone like Jamal Murray, but his strength is able to help him take those bumps and get up the court. I mean, there were times where he got fouled going up because he can take, like I mentioned, he's strong enough to take those bumps, and the defender gets a little overly aggressive, and then he gets fouled there. Jokic,
That's the most
when they tried
frustrating
to,
thing. When they
yeah,
start reaching, I'm like, you're not gonna get anything but a foul, man. Why are you reaching?
yeah, yeah. And then Jokic draw a foul, like you mentioned on Nasri, but he also did on Cat. Cat fouled him when he was bringing the ball up. So it's just those adjustments. And then also, Michael Malone had mentioned screens. They have to get better screens, especially from
Mm.
Jokic. And since game 3, Jokic has been great on screens. It has helped Jamal Murray get separation. Also, Jamal Murray is more explosive off of those dribble handoffs and coming off screens and things like that. So that is able to help him get separation from the defender. And like I mentioned before, if they're able to get Jamal to get separation from the defender, it's just a ripple effect, man. He was able to get going early and it just flowed into everyone else. Jokic was able to do his thing. Aaron Gordon had a big night. It just opens everything up, and great offense usually beats great defense. So after a while, they start to figure you out. And the Nuggets, they figured out how to combat what the Timberwolves were doing. And like you said, it's up to the Timberwolves now to make some adjustments and see if they can steal game 5 on the road in Denver.
Yeah, man. And again, in those 3 days, I feel like the Nuggets kind of remembered who they are in those. And like, look, man, that's not us on film. We got to put together a better effort and a better fight. We can't just lay down like that. And on the other side, I feel like the Timberwolves kind of forgot what they did to win those games and what it took, the type of consistent effort. And it's just crazy how much of a break that probably was for the Nuggets and how much it may have let the Timberwolves relax. Because there was a lot of talk about, oh man, did we overvalue the Nuggets? They don't have nothing but a starting five and their bench isn't deep. And the Timberwolves, man, and Anthony Edwards is like the second coming of Jordan and stuff. And, I feel like they
Yeah.
kind of just naturally in human nature took a little bit of a relaxation. Like we said, they're a young team. They haven't been here before. And it can just come up on you quick like that, man. They just took 2 games back. The Nuggets did, and now it's a series. So I think that another thing is the carryover effect where the Timberwolves, that game 3, I think it had an effect on this game 4, especially for the Nuggets. They were able to find their rhythm, get their confidence back, even though I don't think it was ever truly wavered. I think it just allowed them to get into a rhythm. And you're starting to see guys be a lot more aggressive, which is another thing. I feel like the Nuggets aren't letting the Timberwolves dictate everything in the game, and you're seeing Jokic play a lot better. He hasn't been playing well, but starting game 3, he kind of got back to his normal self, especially tonight was a Jokic game that you would expect. And you're seeing all the other guys really pour in and contribute to the wins. I also think that it is a positive sign for the Timberwolves that Anthony Edwards got a really good game for himself tonight because I think that'll carry over into Denver. And I think being on the road in a hostile environment, there's just a natural effect of playing hard and feeling, kind of outnumbered. Like it's us against them. It's going to be a tough game, but I think the Timberwolves are really going to have to find ways to be the aggressor again without the home run plays. They're going to have to play grown up ball for 48 minutes, and they're going to have to take advantage of all these opportunities they get. They're going to have to foul less. They're going to have to find ways to wrap up possessions. There's a few possessions down the stretch where they didn't wrap up possessions by getting the defensive rebound, which gave the Nuggets second chance points. And I think Karl-Anthony Towns is going to have to be a lot more firm and aggressive with his touches. I think that he relied on the refs too much. We saw when he tried to post up Aaron Gordon was not moving at all. So when he gets those smaller guys on him, he's going to have to make them count. I think he's going to have to really help Ant out with his scoring because there was a lot of dumping it off to Gobert in the short roll and Nickeil Alexander Walker taking a lot of threes and things like that. So yeah, it's that's the cool thing about series in playoff basketball. We get to see adjustment. So we get to see the Timberwolves make an adjustment because the Nuggets took their blows. Now it's time for the Timberwolves to respond and to try to take control back over in this series. So I think this is a good one. It's weird that the road team has won every game this series. I think the inside the NBA said this is only the 8th time in NBA history that's happened, so it's pretty awkward. But we'll see if
Mm-hmm.
the Timberwolves can make adjustments because
Yeah.
they need to.